evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me for the last session of the first day. I know you had already a long day, so I'll do my best to make sure you only need minimal amount of brain power to follow along. So in this talk, I want you to join me to kill John Doe and replace him with realistic mock data using a great tool called mockaroo. But let me first introduce myself. My name is Pieter Jan. People always also call me PJ, Pieter Jan, Pieter Jan, depending on your nationality. But feel free to call me PJ. I've done plenty of things. So I was a tutoring assistant at the KU Leuven, at the engineering faculty for over a decade. I dabbled very shortly in the supply chain and then decided to return to my first love, Java development. So the last 6 years, I spent my time developing in AEM, Adobe Experience Manager. It's Adobe's content management system with a lot of plugins for the digital experience. And if you're looking for some fun stories about Adobe support, feel free to ping me. Currently, I'm also a tech lead on the project I'm working on at Emakina BE, which was recently acquired by APAM, a big company. So first, before diving into the big demo, I would like to talk why we need realistic data. Well, first of all, I'm actually quite tired of John Doe and test user 1, 2, 3, or blah at example.com or admin. So I think it looks really nice. There was also some feedback I received while demoing some new features for a client. Why the weird ipsum lorem stuff, and why do you always use strange names, not real names? And let's be honest, it just looks nice. And the main part for me was that you get data that's semantically correct. For instance, if you are working with emails, it's usually stored as a string, but that means that you can also store test1234 as an email. So syntactically speaking, it's a string, so Java won't complain. But from a semantic point of view, it's not a real email address. It means if you depending on your business logic you're working with, if you want to fetch the domain name of an email address, that won't work. Or if you want the part before the @ sign, it won't work either. So it's actually very beneficial to have realistic test data. Of course, it can be quite consuming if you want to be creative. For instance, on some code bases I worked on, we had some mock users based on the characters of the Godfather. So we have Vito Corleone, who is apparently in the support role, or Michael Corleone, who is apparently a risky customer. But a movie only goes that far, so there are not a lot of characters. So you have to move to something else, for instance, cartoons. So Futurama is quite popular at the company I'm working at, or Family Guy, also great fun. But if you really need a lot of mock users, then I suggest you go for the Simpsons. According to the Fun Wiki, there are over 3,000 characters in the over 20 seasons of episodes. So when you run out of Simpsons characters, I'm pretty sure your code coverage is 250%. So what was actually the trigger to start using it? At the time I was not working on a project, so I was allowed to dabble around with GraphQL. And I came up with something really simple, just like a simple API where I could fetch some contact details of some people I know. But I wanted some real data, and I exactly was tired of coming up with new names. So I discovered mockaroo, and this is where the fun part starts. Is this readable? Yes? No? Okay for everyone? Okay, so let me start mocking some data for my contact details application. So you can just start with some field names. So in this case, first name. And the cool stuff is mockaroo has a lot of predefined field types. So there's a huge list of over 100 field types, and you can just start typing. So for instance, first name, you have 4 variations. Pick whatever you like. I'm going for the generic first name, and there you go. I have realistic first names. Same thing for last name. Just start typing for last name. Then I would like to spend some time here. There are some settings, so you can define the number of rows you want to generate. Let's go for 4, so everything fits on the screen. There's different output formats like SQL, JSON, CSV. If you have to mock some old-fashioned SOAP service, there's also XML. But let's stick with JSON. So for each format, you have some additional settings. For instance, in this case, I want every JSON object to be part of a huge array, and also want to include some null values. So I think we're ready to do our first preview. There you go. So 4 objects representing my contacts with first name and last name. That's only the start. I actually want to add the contact details. We just add a new row, contact details. In this case, this is just another array. So if you start typing for array, we have the JSON array type. And I would like to have at least 1 contact detail with a maximum of 5. Now, since we're talking about a JSON array, each entry of the array will be an object itself, so you can start defining properties of each of those objects. It's just you take the name of the JSON array and you add a dot and then whatever name you want. So the first thing I want to add is the type of the contact detail, and it's a random value from a list. It just comma separated, and on each generation it will pick a value from the list. So in this case, I only have phone and email. And let's add the phone and email as well. So email, as you guessed it, the type is email. And the phone. Now, here the phone field type shows that the company is based in the US, because you can select some formats, but it's typical US formats, but I'll come back to that later. So let's have a look what this looks like. So it's starting to look quite great, but the only downside is, for instance, Odessa has a phone, and you see the phone number, but there's also an email showing. And that's actually not quite correct. So if you, for instance, have the details of a phone, you don't want to see an email, and vice versa. If you have the contact details of an email, you don't want to see the phone number. And there's also a quite easy fix for that. So let's go for contact. It also has the field type formula, and it is just what you think. You can use already generated values to compute something new. Really cool is that you have a question mark with a nice summary. So the formalists use the Ruby language, but it's quite straightforward. So in this case, what do I want to output if the type has the value email? Then I want to output the email field. Else I want to output the phone field. Let's see. All right, syntax errors, always fun. Okay, it's the then. So there you go. So the first entry, Alisa, has a phone, and the contact has the value as a value a phone number. Our second contact detail is the email, and the contact property has a valid email. Now the next issue is the helper values, email and phone, shouldn't be in there. And that's also quite easy fix. You just prefix the name of the field with 2 underscores. Now you actually did here renames. So the formula for the contact field depends on those 2, so you also have to update the formula and add the 2 underscores. Now, there you go. So that's actually quite good. I'm only 9 minutes in my talk, and I think I had an introduction of 2 minutes. So in 9 minutes, I have a nice realistic data of the people I know and I would like to contact. Now, I already mentioned that the phone number field is targeted in the US format. but when all else fails, it's regular expressions to the rescue. You also have a regular expression field. So what I want to do is I would like to generate a Belgian landline number. Some background for the non-Belgian people here. So Belgium is divided into telephone zones. Each landline has 9 digits, and the first 2 or 3 digits are the zone. So for instance, you have zone 02, 03, or zone 016, 056. And those formats can be nicely summarized in a regular expression, and then mockaroo uses this regular expression to generate phone numbers that actually match the regular expression. So I'm going for the 2-digit one, a regular expression. So we have 02 or 03 or 04 or 09. Then you have a space, and then you have 3 digits, followed by a space, 2 digits, another space, and once more 2 digits. Let's have a look what it looks like. There you go. So the first contact detail is from the zone 02, the next one 09, and so on and so on. Now, you might be wondering, where is zone 01? That's actually a nice fun fact, but I was unable to verify. I've been told that the 01 zone is reserved for the Royal Palace. So if you ever receive a phone call and the number starts with 01, you better pick up and be polite. Then I also mentioned you have 3-digit zones. You can actually do the same trick as I did with the email and the phone number. So you can add a field 3 digits, regular expression, fill it out. And then you can also add a Boolean. And if it's true, then you can output the 2-digit zone. And if it's false, the 3-digit zone number. Now, what else? I also use this tool to generate some SQL statements, because every Java application has a database, at least one. But there's something not so nice about it, and you will see it right away. So let me change the format to SQL. Let's have a preview. So as you can notice, the contact details is actually a string representing a huge JSON array. And it actually makes sense because the field type is JSON array. So how can you fix this? I fixed it in an easy way. So in my case, I had a person table just with an ID and a first name. So I just added an ID. And you can just select the row number. So it's just a sequence of numbers. And I want to insert it in the person table. Let's have a preview. So that looks fine. So I actually have 4 rows where the ID is from 1 to 4. So I use this, I copy-pasted them somewhere to keep it safe. And then the second part was actually replicating the contact details. So I'm not going to do them all of them. So a list, email, phone. It also has an ID, but it also has a foreign key pointing to the person this contact details belongs to. And this is a regular number starting from 1 to 4. No decimals, so that means it will be an integer. And if you have a preview, that's then how I did this for the contact details. Now, I'm well aware this is a very simple database schema, so it only goes so far. I mean, if you have complex database schemas with a lot of relationships, good luck with this tool. There's no SQL is actually really well supported, but then again, it's actually built for JSON. So I would like to conclude this with creating an API, always fun. So I'll go back to the person details. So let's keep the ID and just the first name. There we go. JSON. I'm going to save this. I'll call this schema devox. Once you save a schema, a new button appears, create API. And that's actually cool. So you get an endpoint, you can call it, and then it will generate data according to your schema. I'm going to limit it to only 2. But if you want to customize headers, you can do so as well. There are some available methods. So in this case, I would like to add a header. So I know this is coming from mockaroo. Let's create a mock API. All right. So let me switch to the terminal. And up. So now you get, every time you call the endpoints, you will get new, fresh, realistic mock data. And just to show you that the custom header is in there as well, let me show you the headers when I do a call. So here at the bottom, this is the custom header I added. So of course, the functionality is limited, but then again, the main goal of this tool is to generate realistic mock data, not to host an API. So let me go back to the slides. So actually to wrap up, so mockaroo is actually a great tool. It's free, so like the free tier offers all the functionality I've shown, so there's no limitation on the kind of field types you can use. It's quite generous. You can do up to 1,000 requests a day, and each request you can ask for like a few hundred records. If you need more, but then we are entering the big data area, I think it's quite reasonable, the pricing. I really like it. It's quite easy to set it up, and I'll leave the final word to my good friend George. It's cool and easy, what else? So that's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you're eager to go home, no worries. I'm available online. I will be here the rest of the week as well. Thanks. Any questions right now? Yeah.
Can you run the generation locally?
It is not possible to run the generation locally. I actually, as preparation for this talk, I wanted to have a backup in case the Wi-Fi would go down. So I started looking for some kind of Docker image. There is one, but it's for the enterprise level. So if you want to full-blown product, then you have a Docker image for the free tier. Unfortunately, there's no local alternative to generate this data. What I usually do is I do some generations, I save it in a file, and then store it in the code base, for instance, for unit testing, or I spin up a local API if I don't want to be depending on mockaroo. So there are some ways around, but actually generating locally, that's unfortunately not an option. Any other questions? Okay, so thanks for joining me late this evening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.